Ever get that IELTS speaking prompt about using your imagination and your mind just goes blank? Yeah, it can feel a little abstract, right? But don't you worry. In this explainer, we're going to break down a super simple but really powerful strategy to help you tell a compelling story and absolutely impress the examiner.
All right, so this lesson is from us here at the IELTS Focus, and our goal is to give you a super clear and effective game plan. Seriously, by the end of this quick explainer, you're going to have a framework that you can use for pretty much any story-based question, and we'll pack it with some awesome high-level vocabulary too.
Okay, so here's what we've got on deck. First, we'll look at the event framework. Then, we'll dive into the 4 parts of your story: the introduction, the situation, the experience, and the feeling. And to wrap it all up, we'll give you some fantastic vocabulary to really make your answer pop. So, what's the secret to a great Part 2 answer? Honestly, it's all about structure. And we've got a great one for you. We call it the event framework. It's just a simple 4-step plan that gives your story a clear beginning, middle, and end. Trust me, it makes it so much easier for the examiner to follow along.
So those 4 steps are introduction, situation, experience, and feeling. You know, you can almost think of it like building a house. First, you lay the foundation, then you build the walls, you put on the roof, and then you get to do the fun part, decorate. This structure, it pretty much guarantees your answer is complete, coherent, and hits all those key points. All right, let's jump into that first step. Okay, let's talk about part 1, the introduction, setting the scene. Look, the goal here is super simple. Just clearly state what your story is about. You want to get the examiner on the same page right away and just set the scene for what you're about to share. And here are some fantastic sentence starters to get you going. For instance, you could say something like, I'd like to share an experience where I really had to use my imagination, which was when I had to come up with a bedtime story for my nephew. Or, hey, maybe it was solving a tricky problem at work. Just say when it happened, and then, and this is a great touch, add that final sentence. It was a situation that required a lot of creative spark. And speaking of great phrases, check this one out. I really had to think outside the box. Using an idiom like this right at the beginning, that's a huge win. It's a fantastic high-level vocabulary choice that immediately tells the examiner, hey, I get it. I'm ready to talk about creativity. All right, so you've introduced the what. Now it's time for the why. Let's move on to part 2, the situation. This is where you explain the background, the problem or the challenge that really made you tap into your imagination. So you need to explain the reason. Maybe the usual solutions just weren't cutting it, or you wanted to create something totally unique. But here's the key. Don't forget to talk about how you felt. Saying you felt a bit pressured or challenged adds a really nice personal depth to your story, and honestly, it just makes it way more interesting to listen to. And now we get to the heart of your story. Part 3, the experience. This is where you describe the how. What did you actually do? What specific steps did you take to use your imagination and crack that problem? You really want to walk the examiner through your creative process here. Maybe you started by just sketching out some rough ideas. You could talk about how you let your mind wander and even considered some, abstract concepts. And then you describe that amazing aha moment, when a vivid image of the solution just popped into your head and you started to piece it all together. I just love this phrase. I allowed my mind to wander and considered some whimsical themes. Isn't that great? Allowed my mind to wander perfectly captures that feeling of creative freedom. And using a word like whimsical, wow, it's such a fantastic vocabulary choice that paints a really clear, playful picture. Okay, we're on the home stretch. Part 4 is all about the feeling. Look, every good story needs a strong ending, right? So this is where you reflect on how it all turned out, how it made you feel, and maybe what you learned from the whole thing. You could say the whole process was incredibly exhilarating or rewarding. Definitely express how happy you were with the result. And then bring it out home with a lesson. A really powerful way to end would be something like, this experience taught me that imagination is a vital tool for navigating unexpected challenges. See? It shows you really thought about it, and that's high-level thinking right there. And here's another awesome idiom for you. I was over the moon with the final result. Saying you were over the moon instead of just, I was very happy, it's just so much more expressive. It shows you have a great command of English, and it adds a ton of personality to your answer. All right, before we wrap up, I want to give you a little extra edge. Let's quickly go over a few key vocabulary words that will really make your story shine. First up, creative spark. What is that? Well,
It's that initial, sudden flash of inspiration. You know, that little light bulb moment when an idea is just born?
And here you can see exactly how to use it. You drop it right into your introduction, just like we talked about in the framework. It's the perfect way to set the theme of creativity right from the get-go. Okay, next we have vivid imagination. Now, this isn't just about having ideas. It's about being able to see them. Really see them, clearly and in detail right there in your mind's eye. And this is such a brilliant way to phrase it. Eventually, a vivid image of the solution came to me. You'd use this in the experience part of your story to describe that amazing breakthrough moment when your idea finally became crystal clear. And finally, let's look at navigate challenges. This is just a really sophisticated way to say solve problems. It's a powerful phrase because it connects imagination to real-world practical stuff, showing that it's actually a super useful skill.
So, what's the key takeaway here? It's this. Imagination isn't just for artists or daydreamers. No way. It's a vital, practical tool that helps every single one of us solve problems, come up with unique solutions, and, navigate all the unexpected challenges life throws at us. That's the real message you want to get across. So, there you have it. Take this framework, start thinking about your own experiences, and get ready to tell your story. The only question left is, what story is your imagination going to tell?